Alright, Game Boy Color, you've served me well, but it's time for you to move aside for the next generation of Game Boy handhelds. I have a Game Boy Advance now, so I'm not going to be needing you anymore. I can't see shit! So the Game Boy Advance came out and was advertised as the next best thing from Nintendo. I mean, it has the name Advance in it, so we naturally were all expecting lots of changes. I remember seeing the commercials for this thing and was so excited. Hell yeah! I could finally play a Game Boy without the need of a worm light. Don't get me wrong, the worm light will always live in my heart as one of those must-have Game Boy accessories from my childhood. But this thing was supposed to be the next best thing. Why did Nintendo opt out of including some kind of back or front light for the device? The technology was already available, but instead we had to wait for Nintendo's second iteration of the Game Boy Advance to finally get some kind of light on it. I mean, the commercials always showed the GBA with a bright image of the games, and not once did it say that the image or the video was simulated. I get it, it's for commercial purposes, but come on, you're telling me Nintendo couldn't be bothered to update their handhelds with some kind of light on them? They had previously released the Game Boy Pocket Lite in Japan, so they had already dabbled in that technology. Nowadays, you can just mod an original GBA to add a backlight like this one right here, and it improves it so much that it makes it my favorite GBA handheld to carry around. I get it, the GBA SP did some great things, including the clamshell design, which makes it even more pocketable, but the ergonomics of holding that device for extended periods of time as an adult now, it's not that friendly. As a kid, of course, it feels right, or if you have smaller hands, but I always found it uncomfortable to hold for more than 10 minutes. Now that this GBA has a light on it and I can play these games with a beautiful screen, it is the main one that I use. I always liked the way the GBA felt, and while all Game Boys before this were designed in the vertical form factor, and it was great, the GBA decided to switch it to their horizontal side of things, and I have to say it truly is a great way to play GBA games. Of course, you can also play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, which is something I've always loved Nintendo for doing. Backwards compatibility was always something that they carried on and are even carrying on now into the next Switch console that's going to come out. They're going to have backwards compatibility for Switch games. Now, Game Boy Color games and Game Boy games look great on the screen, and you have an option to extend the display to use all of the screen, but I wouldn't really recommend it as it stretches out the image too much and it just makes games look weird. Now, of course, all the GBAs are compatible with Game Boy Color and Game Boy games, but honestly, it's such a bummer to me that playing on this handheld without any kind of backlit or frontlit screen is almost just impossible. If I were to take this to my living room and try and play games like this, it would be near impossible if I didn't have some kind of light source. Of course, here I'm under some light so you can kind of see the gameplay, but in reality, the games just don't look that great. That's why I absolutely love having a modded one now, because I can go ahead and enjoy all these games on a beautifully backlit screen. I love the form factor of the GBA, it just looks great. I mean, I have multiple ones of them because I love its design, and the color options that are available for it are great. I have this pink one here, and of course you've seen the black, and then the clear one that is modded. I really wish Nintendo would have taken the time to include a backlight or even a small front light to the original GBA, just so that people were able to enjoy their games a lot more. I mean, GBA games look amazing. They're, on par with Super Nintendo quality games, so the fact that we weren't able to really see them the way we would like to see them was kind of a bummer. If you have a GBA SP, a lot of people are going to say they prefer that one. I don't like the little buttons on the GBA SP for the L and R. I prefer the ones on the original Game Boy Advance. But again, I know a lot of people really like the GBA SP and its peak design and quality. Of course, it also had a rechargeable battery. But for me, I have to say that the original GBA with a modded backlight on it is going to be the ultimate way to enjoy these games, in my personal opinion. Of course, you're going to have people out there that's saying you can use an emulator device, you can use other stuff, your phone, anything else but original hardware, and I totally get it. I'm one, as I've said in other videos, that enjoys original hardware, and while this isn't fully original because it has a modded backlight, it's still technically original hardware and you're using the actual cartridges to play these games. So If you're one that prefers to play on something like an Ambernic handheld or other emulator devices, that's awesome and it's great. But personally for me, I'm going to stick to these because they're just the best way for me to enjoy these games. Let me know down in the comments, guys, what you think about the video and what you think about the GBA. It truly is a great handheld for everybody. See you later.